What is going on, Colts Nation? Hello, everyone, and welcome to the live stream midweek show hosted by yours truly, Eric Smith and Jamal Lawrence to your left.
Yo.
Together, we make the Colts Cast podcast, delivering you everything and anything Indianapolis Colts. Check us out on Twitter or X at the Colts Cast. Look, we're partnering up with Bleacher Report today, as we've done so many times in the past. So let's get right into it. Life was good for the Indianapolis Colts about a week ago. Wish I had a hat I could throw off about a week ago. The Indianapolis Colts were 5-1 in their last 6 games. We were riding a winning high, essentially. The media, we were getting respect from the media. I pulled up ESPN and they were talking about us being like a team to watch out for. Like, we don't get talked about. We're a small market team. But, considering us like a legit playoff contender, like Shane Steichen's got this team right. He's a first-year head coach. He's up for coach of the year. I even heard people saying Gardner Minshew might be an NFL starter.
Talking greasiness today.
Oh,
all
man.
Right.
No.
All right.
Everything sounded good. I mean, we were on the yellow brick road. And I guess, Shane Steichen is still up for coach of the year, I will say. But I think right now I got Stefanski and Campbell ahead of him. Anyway, all we needed to do was beat the Atlanta Falcons, who just got swept by the Carolina Panthers. Just did that. And that's it. And we would have been atop of the AFC South. We would have strengthened our playoff position overall. Nope. Couldn't do that. The Colts were demolished by the Falcons, 29-10. Taylor Heineke picked us apart. Bijan Robertson could not be stopped. And I'm not underestimating his talent at all, but like Bijan has not had a great explosive rookie year like he's supposed to. The Colts offense had one of the worst outings of the season. Just absolutely pathetic. Everything that could have went bad during that game went bad. Now, with all that said, there is hope. Every team that was behind us essentially on the bubble, they lost as well. So they gave us a mulligan essentially. Yeah. So really the Colts got off scot-free. Jamal, I'm gonna let you take over. What will make this team make playoffs? I mean, are we even gonna make playoffs? Do you want them to make it? How do we make it? Talk to me. What's going on,
man? Just to pick up where you left off, dog. I mean, from the beginning, when we think about the fact that this is supposed to be a breeze of a game for the Colts. Fly on down to Atlanta, get a little dirty bird beaten and keep it moving. But the Colts had other plans. The Falcons had other plans, and they just gave this up. So, fortunately, like you mentioned, AFC South, I mean, you never know what's going to happen. The Jags, again, have lost, and the Texans, again, have lost. So that left the Colts still sitting at, according to New York Times, a 55% chance to make the playoffs. I think it said on their website, we actually went up 3% from last week. So we went from 52% chance to make it to 55% chance. But needless to say, the Colts, we say this all the time, the Colts control their destiny. The Colts have a big game this week. This is an important game. I at some point, I don't know how many more times we can say that, but it's still the truth. I mean, the Colts have to win out. We have to win out to get this chance to get into the playoffs. And I know you mentioned, Eric, you asked 2 questions. You said, for one, can we still get to the playoffs? And 2, do we want us to be in the playoffs? So, and my honest answer to you is, I know everyone always says we want to build the winning culture. We want to build the winning culture. There's nothing more than we want than to have Steichen get to the playoffs after his first year, or, under his first year of coaching, because that shows kind of what the standard is going to be for this team moving forward. And I'm still a big believer in that. I think that the wins matter. Obviously the playoffs matter and all that stuff. But like I've said before, this team understands the winning culture under Shane Steichen at this point. They know what it's about. And I know that each and every one of them want to get the playoff W under their belt, or get the playoffs under their belt. I won't say playoff W, because that's a different story once you get to the playoffs. But to pull up there, I know all the players want that. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. If the Colts were to get into the playoffs, I'm happy. If the Colts are to miss the playoffs, You know what? I'm not going to be happy because I'm never going to be happy with not making the playoffs, but I'm not going to be upset. It's not going to be like it was in 2021 when there was a 99% chance we were going to get to the playoffs and we didn't get there because we knew we had an actual opportunity in the playoffs to do something. Versus this time around where I feel like we've been exposed throughout the season, and some of those exposures just came back to light again this past week against the Falcons. So that kind of tells me that in the event that we were to make it to the playoffs, we don't know what's going to happen. Now, of course, I'm not counting us out in there because we have seen teams like the Raiders against the Chiefs just the other day pull something out of a hat, so anything can happen in the playoffs. You always mention there's a lot of parity in the NFL, but at the same time, I also like to think that the winning culture is known now at this point with the Colts, and it's a new regime there. So if we weren't to make the playoffs, I am not going to lose sleep. If we do make the playoffs, I'm happy about it. So I'm kind of a mixed bag. I would say 50-50, but again, I'm always going to root for winning. I would never not want to win, but I am not going to sit here and say that I'm going to lose sleep if we don't make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I probably won't at this point either, but I do want them to develop that winning culture, especially when Anthony Richardson comes back.
Yeah.
He can step right in. We're going to get some new players as well. Things like that. I want things to be good for Shane Steichen's first year to kind of build that culture under his belt in the first year. It would be amazing. It would be amazing. So if the Colts want a shot at the playoffs, they have to get it together this week.
Mm-hmm.
They have to game plan almost perfectly for the Las Vegas Raiders. A lot of people wrote the Raiders off. They did. But they just got a quality win on the road against Kansas City, who don't look like themselves, but it's still the Kansas City Chiefs. They threw up 63 points on the Chargers. Don't care how bad or good a team is. If you can put up 63 on an NFL team,
mm-hmm.
I'm going to respect that all the way. And they kept it close with the Miami Dolphins, and who just clinched. I don't think they clinched the division yet, but they clinched a playoff berth with the win over the Dallas Cowboys. So Las Vegas Raiders, they aren't a pushover. Run game is pretty good. That team still has Devontae Adams. It's not going to be easy. I thought it was going to be a little easier. I thought we could go into Atlanta, make it a kind of a cakewalk almost, just with how that team has been playing. But no, that is not the case. So I at this point, we can't really tank for a better pick, but players don't tank. Players don't tank. Coaches don't tank. I don't think anyone actually tries to tank. Now, I sometimes think, maybe the front office puts the team into a bad enough position where they just have to tank. But anyway, I don't think the Colts could tank for a better draft pick at this point. We're going to be mid double digits, 20s, things like that. So I think we have to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
It just, I wouldn't lose sleep over it, Jamal, but I'm leaning towards we need to make the playoffs. Like this needs to happen. We need to start. First of all, what we really need to do is win the AFC South. We haven't done that since when? 2014?
Mm-hmm.
I think we have the longest drought of any team in our division. Yet, we're like the only team with a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
Like, we need to come back and win the AFC South. That's going to make a statement. So I'm really hoping the Colts do make a playoff run. It'll be nice because any given Sunday really happens in the NFL. So once you punch your ticket in, I'm not going to write off any team in the playoffs. There's going to be some favorites and things like that, but we've all seen, plenty of teams. I won't say plenty. We've all seen some teams make it out the playoffs or make it out the wild card and get to the Super Bowl. Like, it happens.
Oh yeah.
I think it can happen for us.
Absolutely can. Absolutely. And just got a comment come in. We will make the playoffs, but also need to be competitive on both sides of the ball. That's a great point. Competitive on both sides of the ball. That's been one of our biggest issues throughout this season. And I think that we've kind of gotten spoiled on both sides of it, where we've had weeks where the defense has played phenomenal and generated turnovers. They've scored points on the defense side of the ball, and special teams have come up for us big, even when the offense was playing subpar. So that definitely made it an opportunity for us to really build up on the scoreboard and make the game look like we had a great overall offensive side of the game, and just vice versa as well. We've had games where the offense has come in and dominated really well. Defense hasn't played it so hot, but because we were able to put up those points on the board on the offensive side of the ball, have put us in a good situation. So I like that comment. We have to be competitive on both sides of the ball in that playoff run.
Yeah, we're so inconsistent on both sides of the ball. Like sometimes our defense will we had a stretch where our defense was playing out of their minds. I mean, compiling almost 20 sacks in that week. Like our pass rush was looking good. Our DBs were playing well. Now we're having some inconsistencies there. Our offense will put up 10 points one game, 29 the next. Like it just we're not consistent in that department. So absolutely right. We have to be competitive on both sides of the ball. I mean, that's how you make runs, man.
Yeah. And so speaking of being competitive on both sides of the ball, I think there's a very important elephant we have to address, Eric. I mean, this is something that people have lately, especially after this past game, has really come to the light. And this name has been thrown around throughout the season, through the ups and downs of whether or not we should see changes for this specific person. And I'm gonna let you go first and tell me what you think. But should the Colts fire Gus Bradley? Should we make some coaching changes at the defense coordinator spot, Eric?
The topic of Gus Bradley.
Yeah.
So I mean, let's start with what just happened. We got dismantled by the Atlanta Falcons, and then you have to look and see who really deserves all the blame on the defensive side of the ball. For that performance. Is it a coaching issue or is it a player's issue? I mean, that's where we have to start first. And this is a tough one because I think there's an argument on both sides. Like our players, they looked lethargic. They were not, they could not tackle. It didn't look like they were trying to tackle. They weren't playing at full speed. There were a lot of issues there, but in my opinion, the majority of the blame, I would have to say, goes to Gus Bradley. We talked about this before, and everyone's probably heard this. It's often said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I'm not gonna lie, that's an overused phrase, but it's true. It's true in this scenario. Atlanta has an above average offensive line. Like kudos to that offensive line. It's good. They've spent money, they've invested in it, and they gotten great results. I'm serious. Chris Lindstrom, top tier guard they have. Their other guard is playing well too. I think he's a sophomore. That whole offensive line is great. So, but look, if Heineke or any other NFL quarterback is able to just sit back there in the pocket under no duress, they're gonna do damage. This is the NFL. This isn't NCAA football. This ain't high school. Look, it's going to happen. You have to make adjustments if you're a modern day defensive coordinator. For example, you watch someone like Brian Flores, who loves to send extra rushers. He probably has one of the highest blitz rates in the league of any defense, but he's also, he doesn't just do that every single play. I've seen him drop 9 players into coverage. Like he switches it up. And Minnesota is top 10 in points allowed per game for a reason. Another example, Mike McDonald for the Ravens. They have one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the NFL. I think it is the best now after what we saw last night against San Francisco. Boy, Baltimore. And we beat that team. That's the crazy part.
Yep.
But anyway, they run a versatile defense as well. They disguise their coverage. They have a lot of talent on that roster, I will say, but so do we. But they create confusion for the opposing defense. They always keep the offense on their toes. Like it happens. And my point is really like Bradley is not adapting to what the offense is giving him. He's had some good outings, right? Where our defense plays well. And that's because that team is not adapting to what Gus Bradley's throwing at him. But now no adjustments are ever made. There's no versatility. I mean, everyone sees it. Drop back, do a little zone coverage, cover 3, nothing else. It's just, and I compared it to Frank Wright, but it's just the same vanilla ice cream with no toppings.
Yep.
And it's easier, I guess, like when we saw Frank Wright and, the last few years and how it was vanilla play calling, you kind of see it on the offense more because the offense, you can only do so much on the defense as far as spicing it up. But on the offense, there's a lot you can put into it that, makes it exciting. That's why it sells tickets in the stadium. But the defense I've started to see it's just that same vanilla ice cream, no toppings, blitz once.
Something.
Show blitz. You have the blitz, show it. Like, move a safety up to the line of scrimmage. Do something that will kind of create havoc for the offense, but something that doesn't allow a backup quarterback who's seen less than 4 full games of action this season absolutely dismantle this team. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
I'm not calling for his head, but it's definitely, he's got to be on the hot seat.
Without a doubt, man. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Listen, nothing has changed with Gus Bradley's defense, as you mentioned already, Eric. This has been the same Gus Bradley we've seen all year long, and we've had those flashes and those shinings because we have some legitimate playmakers on our team. We have playmakers. We think about EJ Speed, we think about Zaire, we think about Grove, Samson Ibukam. Like, these people, they're playmakers. So when we look at these pros of our defense, we say we're currently 4th in the league with 47 sacks, tied for 8th with 24 turnovers. I mean, I'm not calling that Gus Bradley's defense. I'm calling that we got playmakers who can get out there and do their thing. Kenny Moore, like these guys can make something shake on their own. But the stuff I will say comes from Gus Bradley's seat is these are all according just to Fox Sport. And I'll run through them real quick because you gave the hard no stuff. But 21st overall, we're allowing 347.5 yards a game. 27th overall in points allowed, we're allowing 24.5. 26th overall run defense, allowing 127.4 a game. And 14th overall in the pass defense, allowing 220 yards a game. I mean, those numbers, that's scary, man. That's in the bottom half, obviously, of everything, except for our pass defense. That just doesn't work. At some point, you have to figure out when to make these adjustments, because if you aren't making adjustments, none of what our playmakers can do will matter, because there's only so many times or so many places, really only one place, that a Kenny Moore, that a Zaire, that a Grover Stewart can be on the field at a time. So we have to figure out a way to make any adjustment we can without getting carved up the way it's been. So I have said from day one, I think that we need to figure out a way to move on from Gus Bradley and be a little more aggressive on the defense side of the ball. But I also said that, and this is my personal opinion, that if I'm Shane Steichen, someone coming in as a year 1 coach, rookie coach, trying to figure out everything, and I don't want to have to think about one more coach to take care of, I'm going to allow Gus Bradley the opportunity to stay with me at least for 1 year to kind of see what he does and how, if his style fits my style, if that mold fits. And then from here, once Steichen gets his feet wet after this year, I think he'll feel more, either A, more inclined to move on because he'll have someone else that he's looking forward to, or B, willing to figure out a way to make this thing shake with Gus, and they can kind of get to more in depth of what they expect. But I personally didn't feel that Steichen was going to, again, continue to put more holes in the organization when it's your first year. You want to focus on what you do best, and that's the offensive side of the ball, and then let the defense do what they do, and then from there kind of figure out. But I would not be surprised if we move on from Gus after this year just because of what's happened.
Yep. Just part ways, mutually agree. Don't even have to fire, do
right.
the layoff or whatever.
Exactly.
Look, because like you have to put your players in positions to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just insert 11 of them and they go about it. Like this starts from all the way from practice to game planning. Like the amount of times I've seen our DBs kind of miss their assignments, I always wonder, is this a scheme issue or is it a player issue? Did they not know how to play this coverage? Did they not know when to pick up this player if he cuts out or in? Like stuff like that, I always wonder. And you'll never really get the honest and truthful answer because we're not We're not over there in the conference rooms listening in. We're not at practice every day, but we do get to ask some questions.
Yeah.
So, we're getting close to maybe the end of the Indianapolis Colts season. Let's talk a little draft, just a short little coverage. I mean, Jamal, I think anyone holding out for Marvin Harrison Jr. Let me go ahead and crush your New Year's your New Year's wish, because that ain't happening. He'll be gone in the top 5, and Chris Ballard is not trading up for a wide receiver. Let's get that. If he trades up for a wide receiver, I don't know what I would do. I'd probably jump out of my house.
I'd probably take back everything I ever said about him if he did that. Yeah, I ain't doing it because I know it's not happening.
I wouldn't really want him to do that. But we all know Ballard. He loves to trade all his picks and trade back so he can have 14 fifth-round picks. So we're about to have Ballard back in the house. So Jamal, I think there's a few ways we can go here, and I do want to send the poll out to see, which position should the Colts target in the first round. We got D-line, we got DB, we got wide receiver, O-line. There could be others. If there are others, let us know. Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the chat what you think. But these are my top 4 that probably are going to be targeted. Now, these are like position groups. So let's just talk about, I think defensive line, edge rusher, our starters are pretty good.
Yeah.
DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, Kwity Paye, Samson Ebukam. But you have to always wonder what's going on in Chris Ballard's mind. What if the Colts decide to go another direction with Grover Stewart? He's in a contract year. It expires, I believe, in 2024, right?
Yeah,
so
he's
in that. Yep. So, also good depth pieces. We've seen with Dayo Dengbo, he's so good when he comes in for half the snaps a game, but he's so good, and that's why I believe he leads the team in sacks. So you get someone for depth, you get someone to replace someone. I'm looking at Jared Verse out of Florida State. Looks really good. Florida State went 13-0 and still couldn't make the college football playoffs, which is, I've already talked about this with other people. I hate that system because so many teams get the short straw, and I think they need to expand it, but that's neither here nor there. He has that pass rush upside. He has that run defense upside. He's really good. I've seen him just manhandle tackles. Now, I don't know if he's going to be doing that in NFL, but if we do somehow get him, I would love for him to do that.
I like that. I like that, man. Again, we have the depth pieces there, but I'm always about having a little bit more in the tank. And we know Ballard loves the defensive line, so I wouldn't be surprised to see someone like that sneak through and continue to bring that next new energy to the Colts. So I'm all about it.
What you got?
I'm gonna go wide receiver I'm gonna go wide receiver. I'm gonna go wide receiver for us. This is a name, Eric, we've talked about a few times. Keon Coleman, Florida State. Listen, y'all know I love the offensive side of the ball. I want to keep it over there for me for this one, just because MPJ's in a contract year for us. We know that. Colts
he's gonna resign.
I think it's safe to say he's going to get re-signed. I do think it's safe to say. However, I will say that I wouldn't mind having some more depth, because to me, this past week was an exact reason why we need. And I know that our starting quarterback, Nathan Richardson, wasn't in there. We have Gardner Minshew playing, but we need some more depth there, because our wide receiver number 2, Alec Pierce, was a non-factor for us, and an opportunity where he had a chance to really flourish. Josh Downs, of course, 6 catches out on 9 targets. He didn't have too great of a game. I think our leading receiver was Kylan Granson, our tight end. So that, and again,
made some phenomenal catches.
And I'm not knocking Granson at all, because he did his thing. But, and again, I know that we don't have our starting quarterback out there. However, I've seen plenty of backup quarterbacks carve up with the wide receiver 2s and wide receiver 3s this year. So I would like to have another depth piece. And if that means that we have to pick up someone like Keon Coleman in the first round, I wouldn't mind seeing that, because I think he would bring a new element to the table. Strong hands, another big guy, fast guy who has a great route tree and can get up and go for the ball.
I like Keon Coleman too. I like a lot of wide receivers. I think every year there's always a good group of wide receivers. That's why, that's why they usually go like late first round, I feel like, or they even drop to the second or third. I mean, we saw Josh Downs go in the third. Why? He's undersized. But he, to me, was like first round, early second round talent on paper. Just because there's no size there, that doesn't mean he can operate, in at all levels of the field, and he plays bigger than his size, and we've seen that already.
Yeah.
I always love defensive back too. If we can specifically corner, if we can get a lockdown corner, and I'm always look. I told you all this last year with the shitty year the Colts had, with Matt Ryan under center. But who did I say was going to be the most impactful player that year, Jamal?
Gilly, you said it day in and day out. You said Gilly,
and he won us a couple games single-handedly, just a lockdown corner. If you can shut down the passing game on their number one receiver, I mean, you take away options. And if we can get a lockdown corner, because I feel like we're missing that. Give me a Kool-Aid McKinstry. There's a lot of good corners. Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. Yeah. I mean, even the other Alabama corner, Terry and Arnold. There's a lot of good corners out there, and if we can find a lockdown corner, I would say that investment of a first-round pick is absolutely worth it.
Without a doubt. And of course, so we can round it off with the offensive lineman, and I'm not going to lie to you, Eric. So I don't have a specific offensive lineman quite yet. I've been watching a few, but I haven't really pinpointed who I want yet. I know we've had a lot of issues this year with Braden Smith, him not being there. We know availability is the best ability, and he has not been available for us. But I also would be a liar if I said I wouldn't be eyeing centers as well. We've had some up and down with Ryan Kelly as well. So, and that's kind of why I'm torn by the tackle position or the center position at this point. I think with our interior linemen, we could always get a new one. I could always have one back there with us, just because Big Q, all of our guys, they're getting up there in age. We still have a young team, but age-wise, for what it's worth, the offensive line, I mean, I think they're getting up there a little bit, and I think that we have to